Dune and The Wheel of Time are some of the most beloved series in fantasy and science fiction. It is kind of a strange coincidence that they both happen to be getting major adaptations around the same time. Of course, The Wheel of Time is going to Prime Video. Thank you, Jeff Bezos. Dune is being made into a movie at Warner Brothers. Pitting these two series together is an unfair thing, I truly think. And I don't want to be starting some kind of feud or war. This is an interesting thought experiment for me to explore the differences between these two series. Now, I'm going to be limiting this video to just the original Dune in the series and the first Wheel of Time book, The Eye of the World. And I want to explore how the writing styles differ and how both Robert Jordan and Frank Herbert used their opening novels to set the stage for the series. I will be covering writing styles, character work, and the world building. But before I get into the main subjects, both the original Dune and The Eye of the World in many ways subvert expectations for their respective genres. Frank Herbert really throws the reader headfirst into this world. While we do have Paul, it's still extremely alien, it's still extremely odd, and Paul is not our only point of view, but I will get into that later, because it's really an omniscient narrator, an omniscient perspective. Whereas the first book in The Wheel of Time, I'm not speaking for the whole series, but the first, it is primarily from Rand's point of view. There are a few other POVs, but they're very short. Both books are trying to subvert tropes. The first books in the series, in these two series, are the most, I wouldn't say formulaic, but most familiar. You read Dune Messiah, and the entire mythology, the entire moral of the story in some ways in Dune is deconstructed. Carrying on from the point about writing styles, Dune is, again, written from that third-person omniscient point of view. We are jumping around into people's heads, sometimes mid-conversation, often mid-conversation, so there's not a lot of hidden information. There is suspense, and there are things hidden from us occasionally, but for the most part, we know where the players are. Using that point of view isn't the best for maybe a thriller or a mystery or something, but for what Dune is, it works perfectly, in my opinion. Wheel of Time is third-person limited. Later books, it jumps around more between POVs, but in the first book, it's mostly Rand's perspective. Now, on a sentence-by-sentence basis, both books are sort of similar. I love Frank Herbert's writing style. I think it's extremely effective, but I personally prefer the writing in The Eye of the World. I think there's some really beautiful writing in that book. Some would say maybe too flowery or excessive. I think that it really paints such a vivid picture in my head. Now in Dune, there is less in the way of gorgeous description. There is great description. There are some beautiful passages, but that's not the focus. And that can't be the focus. I mean, imagine, it's like Robert Jordan is testing the waters, is easing into the pool because it's cold and chilly, whereas Frank Herbert's just cannonball right into the deep end. That method of entry into the series informs how the books are written. The characters in Dune feel like pieces in a machine. There's so much that feels inevitable that's going to happen, and I don't really get that sense from The Eye of the World. I do have to say I feel more humanly attached to the characters in The Wheel of Time than I have in Dune. Dune excels in exploring those internal conflicts. Almost because of that constant moving around and jumping focus, I have less care for each of them. In a way, this is kind of hard to explain. They start out as very naive. In Dune, so many of the characters are very wise and have seen a lot. On a personal level, I don't feel like I care that much about hanging out with any of them. Duncan, Idaho, yeah. In terms of general world building, I have to give this to Dune. Look, we're just talking about the first books. We're talking about Dune and The Eye of the World. In terms of world building, Dune packs a punch. So many interesting things explored in The Eye of the World, but we have a lot of the more traditional fantasy stuff to lean on when things are too unfamiliar. Yeah, having a bit of the comfort of easing into a world from the point of view of someone who is very new to it is great. I mean, that's why we love Portal Fantasy too, at least I do. Dune has a different approach, and that's all good. Sheer scope of things and the sheer originality, I have to give this to Dune, hands down. At the end of this all, what does it boil down to? Who has the final tally? There is no tally. This is just a simple compare and contrast. I love these two books, and I thought this could be an interesting topic. Both books have their challenges, I think. And let me know what you think about these books. Try to be as objective as possible. Which one do you think is the better opener to the series? Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye.